ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Professor Wright.
Well, let's just check on our mics. How does that sound? Are we good at the back? Good, all right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be with you today. Karen's introduction begs the story, right? Very red. Where did that come from? Well, we gathered in Edmonton. So let me digress a little bit. That's one thing you'll find out. I do that a little bit. But we were in Edmonton for the gathering. But I went down to Red Deer to visit my friends, and they just happened to have a rugby tournament on that weekend. So don't go to Alberta without a hat. And it was a nice, bright, sunshiny day. And so, yes, the apple, yes, I was a little red. We won't say what the rest of the week looked like later on. But, yes, it was an energetic week. And I've only been here since last night and this morning, but I can already tell that there's an energetic buzz within the room. I know you don't need me to tell you that you're doing good work, but let me tell you, you're doing very good work. As a member of the community, in one of the communities in which you serve, I do see your hand out there. I am involved with our school, where my children go to school. I have recently been the chair of the parent council, if you will, the school council. I see your hand at work within the school system. I've recently taken on a new role within our health system in Niagara, so sitting on the board there. I see your hand in the work that we're involved with as well. I have friends and neighbors that are very actively engaged with the good work that you do, and I see all of your hands there. So I know you don't need me to say congratulations on the great job that you're doing, but let me just start off by saying congratulations on the great job that you're doing. So our talk today, then, we'll look at a little bit of how we're going to look at successfully leading change. Now, I hope you don't mind if I move around a little bit up here rather than stand behind a microphone. It's what I sort of do best. An opportunity in a classroom to kind of move around. I may even wander down into the audience as we go, but I know our camera gentleman would like me to probably stay here. So we'll see what we can do. But I do like to move around a little bit. So welcome to our gathering today. We're going to talk about successfully leading change. And so one of the things that I want to talk to you a little bit about is a thing about who are you now? Okay, who are you now? I had a good friend that when I worked in Red Deer, his name's Hart Canelon. He happened to be a mentor of mine. I worked with him. He was a football coach for me as well. And when I had an opportunity to look at doing some graduate work in Kingston at Queen's University, I called Hart because he was down there. I said, Hart, where would be a good place to come? And he recommended Kingston would be a great spot. So I went down there. And I can remember one of the first times that I hadn't seen him for about 10 years, really. And I'd walk around to the hallway, and I saw Hart, and he looked at me and said, hi, Barry, who are you now? And I walked by and said, hi, Hart, I'm fine, thanks very much. And I go, I kind of missed that up. So then I can remember it was a day or so later, and I saw Hart again, and he says, oh, hi, Barry, who are you now? And I go, he is a sports sociologist, so I should expect some strange behavior from individuals like that. So then I taught a course with Hart, and I can remember he said that to the class at the beginning, and he said, hi, class, who are you now? And they looked back kind of quizzically like I was, and you are looking right at me right now. And then at the end of the class, he said to them, he said, hey, class, who are you now? Are you the same person you were, in this case, 90 minutes ago? And he said, if you are, then one of two things happened. I didn't either give you some things to challenge you a little bit so that you would think things a little differently or reflect, or you weren't paying attention. All right, so I'm going to invite you to think about who you are now. I'm going to let you think about what things are going on, and I'm going to throw some stuff towards you today, and some of it hopefully will resonate with you. And at the bottom you'll see one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do is think about 3 insights, 3 things that you will take away today. Unless you're an outstanding leader already, then take away 4. Okay? So 3 insights that you can look at, and then as you go away from today, you're going to have a chance to reflect and think about some of these things. And as you reflect, then think about 3 things that you're going to enact back in your organization. I know that for me, the power of 3 is really out there. So here's some of the tidbits that I'm throwing your way. 3 is a really powerful number for me. I know when I've gone out and I've been trying to do something, there'll be a couple of us get together and we don't get things done. That third person comes along, wow, good things happen. So threes work out well. When I think about where I want to go and I start thinking about 19 different directions or goals or objectives and stuff like that, I get lost in the details. When I think about 3 things I should be working on, I get them done. So as we go today, change is good. You go first, all right? And that's a really powerful point. I'll come back to that because really when it is change is good, you are going to have to go first. Leaders will have to go first. So what is the challenge of change? I think one of the, if you were reading your brochure, and it wasn't just the free breakfast that got you here this morning, and it was around the concept of challenge of change. And I could, in the academic world and the change course that I teach to both our MBA program and our 4th-year university students in the Goodman School, I could come out and I'd cite hundreds of research studies and showing them that change fails. Roughly 2/3 of change fail. Or you could go back for the literature fans amongst us, and we could look at Machiavelli's approach. And I really do like this one, and so permit me to read it. There's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than take the lead in a new order of things. And it's true. And so if you want to go back to Machiavelli's day, or you want to look at the research studies now and say, well, geez, change really doesn't work. 2/3 of changes are fail. Why would we be looking at change then, Barry? And I know the AGM was talking a little bit about that. Then why are we changing? Well, the greatest philosopher of the 20th and 21st century is a fellow by the name of Robert Zimmerman, also known as Bob Dylan. And Bob has, from one of his songs, is that he not busy being born is busy dying. And so that's a pretty harsh thing. If we're not continually reinventing ourselves, then we're in trouble. Well, I am from business, so let me talk about a little business story. Any people from Waterloo here? They probably feel this a little bit closer. Yes, a lot of Waterloo. They're feeling this. So, well, hey, 2008, not that long ago. So what's that? 4 plus 1, that's 5. Yeah, very good, Barry. 5 years. 5 years ago. And a little company that's based in Canada had a wonderful press opportunity. The new president of the United States comes on, and one of the first things that President Obama says, can I keep my BlackBerry? All right, imagine that. So the most powerful person in the world says, I want to keep my BlackBerry. Can you get any better advertising than that? What's the price of their shares? $200. I think that's when I bought in. Okay, I'm in business, but I'm not in finance. Okay. So then, a few short years later, the world is saying, I want an iPhone. Okay, and what's the share price at that point? $7.36. All right, boom, that's a pretty dramatic drop. Okay, well, what was going on in those 4 years? Why did RIM disappear so much? Why was it the go-to phone and then it's gone? They invented the category. Well, they started thinking about getting hockey teams, I guess, to Waterloo or Hamilton or things or whatever, but they lost sight of what their actions were and the ability to change. And then when they did decide they wanted to start change, and they brought out, I guess, was it February last year? Then they brought out the BlackBerry 10, and it's kind of interesting, and so a lot of people were hopeful and bought in at 1480 and things on that lines. Now, our good friend CEOs just disappeared off the face because he tried to change it. It didn't work out so well. The marketing people were saying, well, we could do that a little bit better next time. And now what do they add? Last week when I checked, 676. Okay? All right, so what is that all about? Ye not busy being born is busy dying. Same works for us. We don't have share prices, but we do have other things that will be our metrics. And I was at the AGM, and I was very heartened to hear when the CEO was talking about the metrics and things along those lines, the blueprints for success and things that you're going to count, because what you count what does matter. And so when we're sitting here, what is it that counts for you when you look at that? But we've got to make sure that we are adapting to the world in which we live. So one of the messages I want to leave with you is that change is constant. We can't ignore it. It's out there. Every generation that comes through will say that change is more rapid in our generation than anything happened before, and it is true. Things progress very quickly. So you have two choices. You can either decide to take charge of the change or just sit back and let change take charge of you. Okay? So it's our choices. I'm not naive to think that we can control our world, but we can't control whether or not we decide to enact or act within our world. So I guess the first reflection, you have to decide here for yourself and with your organization, who do you want to be in charge? You want somebody outside to be in charge, or, and again, this is from the AGM and your present CEO, I loved his comment when he made a comment that we'd like to be an agenda setter. And I think that's a really powerful place to be. And so if you do believe that you would like to be an agenda setter, you'd like to take charge and control of where you're going to go and change, then some of the things that I'm going to share with you today I think will help you along that journey. So what I challenge you to think is, think about one change journey that you would like to make in your world right now. What's on the horizon for you within your organization or your collective organizations, because I do appreciate that there is a regional sense that is happening in your world as well. But think about what change it is, and then as we go through that, use that as your backdrop as you go along this journey. Okay, so if you're like me and you need to write things down, jot some things down. If you've really got that steel trap memory, then you can just lock them away. But are you looking at changing the culture of your organization? Are you looking at changing some of the processes? Are you looking at changing and developing the people within your organization? Or are you looking at some sort of collaboration with colleagues across from different organizations? So think about that as a backdrop, because it'll help you frame some of the conversations as we go forward. So what is this wonderful thing called organizational change? And I think it's important for us to have a little bit of a sense on what that means. And so there's a definition that I like to use in it, and it really does talk about restructuring resources. And that's not just financial resources, it's also human resources, it's also your time. Where will you spend your time? Because that's a really powerful resource as well. And so anytime you're going to go through an organizational change or individual change, you are restructuring resources. Hence, the challenge that people will have with it. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in our presentation. But there will be people that will, if you will, that haven't seen the light yet. And the reason why is there's quite a bit of fear that goes on anytime that we've got to restructure. Because I don't know where we fit in that new organization. Okay, we're working with our executive team in the Niagara Health System as well, and we're talking all about these things because there's a lot of energy, if you will, in the wonderful world of healthcare as well, and I know you feel it in your part of the wonderful world of healthcare as well. So, but we are looking, when you restructure resources, people get nervous about that because they don't know where that's going to be or where it's going to go. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is that concept of, when we're talking about leading change, then that means there has to be a leader or leaders that are looking at doing that change. And so the one message I really, truly enjoy that comes from a book called The Leadership Challenge by Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner is about the leader. So people will first follow the leader, then they will follow the plan. I think that's my next slide, but I want to make that point out. They first will follow the leader, then they will follow the plan. And so if you don't have credibility, or your leadership team is not in a credible place, people will not follow you, okay? People will not follow you. No, I'm not going to bring up any kind of leadership issues that are happening in any city near you. Okay? But do think about that aspect around here. So what Kouzes and Posner have done is they've ran questionnaires with followers all across the world. So this is not just a Canadian or North American perspective. This is a worldwide perspective. They've also done it over time. I think they're in their 5th generation of their nice readable book on leadership. And these 4 things have consistently come out on what followers want. And then, ergo, this is what we need to be. So what do followers want? They want you to be honest and consistently honest. Okay? They appreciate there's some particular points where you might have to, massage the truth a little bit. Okay, my wife knows that I will say nice things. Oh, I'm glad you bought another mirror for the house. I really like how it brightens up the room. Okay, so be honest, especially in the, and you need to have some of those honest conversations at particular times. But so make sure you are consistently honest. They are looking for you to be forward-looking. Okay, a vision. This is always an interesting one because I know I've had some friends that have gone apply for leadership positions that are in there. So they're going to ask me about a vision. And I'm going, yeah, you're going to have a vision. But so if you present a vision, people will say, oh, I didn't have any input in that. That's a horrible vision. So they'll say, oh, well, that's not so good. And then if you don't present a vision, they'll say, well, and you come up with a line, well, I just would like to talk to you, and then we'll come up with a vision. Then they'll say, oh, well, he doesn't have any vision. We wouldn't want to hire that guy. So it is one of these tension points around where it is. But people are looking for you to have an idea where you're headed. We will talk about later on about you need to include people in that conversation, but they want to make sure that you have a general idea where you're heading. So you need to be forward-looking. They also want you to be inspiring. They want you to be a bit of a cheerleader or passionate around your thing. Now, this is a really important point to listen to. That doesn't mean that you have to be a raw cheerleader. You need to be passionate with the style of leadership that you are. Don't try and be to do something that isn't you. So if you are a very out front and really that type of individual, then be that type of individual. Allow your emotions to come forward and things as you speak. If you're a little bit more of a quiet individual, that's okay. They can still tell when you're passionate. Just make sure that you do have some passion and you're excited about that. And the last thing that they want then is they want to make sure you've done something. Now I know nobody in this room would be here if you hadn't had a record of already of achievement. So I think that's, I think you're all well along on that way in your journey. But don't be afraid to share that with people sometimes. I think we're a little too silent, and it's okay that if you allow people to sing your praises. Because if you do that, then the bottom line is you will have credibility, and beside that is the concept of you will be worth somebody's trust. And so much, and that's so powerful that people will trust you. And with trust, everything is possible. I have a good friend, he's in the HR world, and he says, all I really want when I go into those things, Barry, is I'd like to have people believe that give me the benefit of the doubt. And you think, give me the benefit of the doubt, so that people aren't immediately lining up and saying, oh, that doesn't work, okay? That they'll have an opportunity to sit down and say, okay, well, let's think about that. Let's think about what they're coming in. So that's where that credibility will come in, that people are worthy of their trust. Okay? So we've got to make sure that we are that credible leader if we want things to happen. And so, as I said, people will first follow the leader, then they will follow the plan. So what's one of the best ways to make sure that you develop credibility? It's that wonderful word there in yellow. Can anybody enunciate it? Do what you say you will do. Exactly. Do what you say you will do. So here's a reflective moment for you. Since your reputation is the most important thing that you have, guard it with your life, and that's your credibility. So you will, because I know you're busy people. You're here. That's why you're a busy person. You could have done other things, but your day jobs are carrying on, but you're still here. You're a busy person. And so people are going to come up and ask busy people to do things. So when people come up and ask you, say, hey, Barry, would you like to do this? Here's one thing that I always do. Thank you very much for thinking of me, Karen. Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you. I've got a lot of things on the go right now, but if I can commit to that, then I will commit to that. And then go away and think about it. And when you make that decision and you say, yes, I would love to be here in downtown Toronto on this Tuesday, talking about change, then make sure you're here. And make sure you're prepared and doing all the kind of things. Okay? Because that's important. If you cannot, then say, thank you very much for that opportunity. When I look at the things that are happening, I would not be able to do the job that you would like me to do. I'm going to have to decline. So they will be sad that you said no, but they'll also be somewhat, well, at least he thought deeply about that. And you have thought deeply about that. But whatever you commit to, make sure you do. Now, one of the things, a little story on this one, with the fourth-year leadership class that I teach at Brock University, the students in this class get an opportunity to pick what they want to do for assignments and when they hand them in. I figure, well, they're leaders. You guys decide. Figure out what plan. Now, and we do that in my, I guess now 20 years of teaching leadership class. How many assignments have ever come in late to the leadership class? You know how many? 0. Can't say the same about other classes I teach. I'm a bit of a softie when it comes to that. But one of the things with the leadership, because I talk to them about do what you say you will do and how important your credibility is, and they understand it. I know you understand it. I'm just going to emphasize that point. Whoop. So the next thing, a little message I want to talk about, so once you've decided about you developing your skills, now we got to move on to the next one, and that's to create an environment for change to happen. And I had a wonderful talk that I was at last week, and it was talking about the concept of polarity. And this is about, if you will, the polar opposites of each thing. And in the wonderful world of change, we always talk about the concept of making sure there's a sense of urgency in your organization to be able to get things to happen. And so when I thought, well, what's the exact opposite when we come in there? And I came up with a few words, but I decided to use the dictionary, and they actually come in. And the one that I really liked is satisfaction. So urgency and satisfaction. In your organizations, we're probably a lot of satisfaction going on. I teach how to make sure your employees are job satisfaction. That's a key thing in there, a happy, productive worker, all those sorts of things. But when you get in, if we're all happy about how things are, there tends to be not a real sense of urgency when you want to work on the change. And so you have to find some place, identify a critical issue that isn't right in your organization. And then from needs and motivation, what we do, we'll be motivated to get there. So think a little bit about what is the sense of urgency. You remember I invited you to find a change that you had out there. So think about what's the urgency to get there. What is it reason why you need to change this, okay? And often there is a vulnerability in your organization. You have to understand what that vulnerability is. And so you could either understand what that is or create it, as I've got up here, Cortez. Where's our historians in the crowd? Anybody know what Cortez did to create a sense of urgency for the people he brought to the New World? He burned his ships. So they land, everybody disembarks, and something goes on. You in? All right, we'll follow you. Okay? So I don't necessarily think that you want to blow up your organizations or burn them down to the ground. But use it as a metaphor that sometimes people do need to look at how do you create that energy to get that sense of urgency going. Highlight a little bit, who are the antagonists? Often there is a bad guy that's out there. That's why the movie scripts, the Hollywood movie script really work. There's always somebody that we're trying to overcome somewhere. So you have to recognize, what is that? Okay, is it complacency? Is it the public doesn't understand the whole concept? What is the sense of urgency? Are there your clients, the people that deserve our attention? Are they not being as well served as they could be? And you'll know when you have achieved the sense of urgency when 3/4 of your leadership team buy in. Okay? So it was interesting. I know there were some votes that went on the annual general meeting and things along the lines. Usually it's 50 plus 1, right? Most organizations. Sometimes you need to look at leaving, higher numbers to make sure that people have bought in to that. So why do we have a little frog in there? Other than I really like the concept of follow the frog. It's an environmental group, you shop the frog and that sort of thing. But the frog, one of the things that you'll find, and I've never done this, so don't, the animal rights groups don't get up on me, but I've read about this, the concept of you put a frog in cold water and then slowly heat it to a boiling point. The frog doesn't hop out, okay? The slight adaptations, the things that are going on, we don't pick up on all the time. He doesn't understand his sense of urgency around that. You throw a frog towards hot water, they immediately hop out because they understand the sense of urgency. But we can find that in our satisfactory organizations. The temperature continues to rise and gets hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, and we're not picking up on that. Okay, so what are the metrics that you have in your organization to say, you know what, it's starting to get a little hot in here. We should be looking at hopping around somewhere. Okay, so start thinking about what is your measure points about your sense of urgency, and are we too satisfied where we're at? So after you've got the sense of urgency, then you got to work together. Who is that powerful coalition that you need to bring to be in the room to make good things happen? Okay, if previous slide talked about 3, you probably need to get a little bit expanded there. But ask yourself, who do we need in the room? Who do we need to work with as we go through this process to build that team? Should it be a huge, huge team? Probably not. Their management wisdom from... oh my goodness, I can't believe I can't think of his name. But has a wisdom point that any team that's bigger than 2 pizzas will feed is too large. Okay? So 2 pizza sizes. And I mentioned that to my leadership class recently. I said, well, are they the 20 package size pizzas? And I go, yeah, well, you figure that out. All right, but you do need to have a powerful coalition. And sometimes you need to have people who are just might not really agree with your vision initially to be on there. Why? Because you need to understand why people might not agree with your mission. And if you can convert that person with your whatever the sense of arguments and things you have, you can convince other cynics that might be out there. Other thing is on this one, that powerful coalition, I want to talk about spirit of compromise. This comes from the first female, if you will, consultant guru that's out there, Mary Parker Follett. And she was operating in the 1930s. And here's a story. Let me tell you a story about Mary Parker Follett. At those days, if you wanted to do some research, you actually had to go to the library. Okay, now I don't think anybody of my students know where the library is, but it's on their computer, right? And so she goes to the library, and she's going through the books and things, and she finds, oh, it's a bit chilly in here. So she walks over to the window, or over there, and there's a window, and it's open. And she goes up, and she's about to close the window, and there's somebody sitting right there, and the person said, excuse me, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm a little cold, so I thought I'd close the window. And she said, well, and the guy says, I was a lot hot, so I opened the window. So what you have here is a situation known as conflict. Anybody ever had conflict in their world? Right? And so in this conflict situation, so think about, all right, how do we go about solving this conflict? Think about it in your own mind. If you've got a really good idea, tell your neighbor right now. I wish I was at your tables. Remember, I like a good laugh. Apparently, there's lots of good laughs going on there. Well, here's the one that often happens, right? Well, we'll just close it halfway. That's the great Canadian choice, right? Compromise. We're going to halfway. You're going to be upset. I'm upset. Nobody's happy, but at least we're equally unhappy. All right, there we go. Okay. No, one of the things that Mary Parker Follett talked about was then finding out where this cooperation is. And she says the first way that you find out where the cooperation is, you start talking with people. Wow, what a powerful thing to do. Start talking with people. And in many respects, asking questions. And so she did, she said, and she went first. And so you're going to see this leaders go first. She said, you know what, I am here to do some work. She explained why she was in the room. And I need to be in this room. Do you need to be in this room? Honest. And he said, no, not really. I'm just looking for a quiet place. So then she says, if I could find a quiet place for you, close to a window, would you be willing to move? And he says, absolutely. So she goes next door, finds a spot, nobody's around, opens the window, I found a spot, comes there. She's happy, he's happy. Okay? And so, yes, is there a compromise, slight give and take on both things? Was that out of the way? But instead of just being equally unhappy, now they can be equally happy. And what does that mean? You have to have conversation to do that. Well, here's the thing as well. I've got their swift trust. When you're going to go into the spirit of compromise, you need to find swift trust. It's a powerful thing. Back to that credibility. So as we go back to that, so what do we need to do to get the swift trust? We got to go out there and go first. There's a little case that we have in business called the ugly orange case. And it's a negotiation case. So there's one group of traditional MBA students and another group of MBA students. And they sit there and they all get a certain amount of points if they are able to divide this property up quite nicely. And the other thing that's in there, and the little twist on the case, and there's always a little twist, is the orange grove. And in the orange grove, one team needs the orange grove because they need the peels from the orange. And the other team needs the orange grove because they need the juice of the orange. And so I sit back and I watch this happen. It's one of the treats of being a professor, is you get a chance to see these two groups going in there, and one will say, you know, we'll really give you this big place here, and I think that would be a great land development area, and you could have this river, that sort of thing, and we'll just take the orange grove. And then, oh, well, that's great. Well, you know what, we appreciate that, but, you know, you can have the water, and you can have that, and we'll just take the orange grove. And then they go back and forth, and most of the time there's a cluck, 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 ticking, 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 and most of the time the people get there, and they don't get there. Nobody solves the issues because we've set them up for failure. Occasionally a group, very occasionally a group will sit there after they've heard my Mary Parker Follett story and they don't enact it right away. And finally somebody says, and I watch them and say, you know what? I get the sense that the orange grove is important to you. You know what? the orange grove is important to us as well. What is it about the orange grove that's important for you? Because for us, it's we need the juice from the orange grove. And the other group goes, oh, well, we need the peels from the thing, so we could share this and work. Oh, spirit of cooperation. Happy, happy. Okay? So you have to have that conversation. I know you're going to have some conversations in groups coming up in the future. Somewhere along the lines, if you want to be successful in things, you're going to have to let them know that you're interested in the juice or whatever. You're going to have to go first. You're going to have to be vulnerable to them first. And if you do that, you'll find through the spirit of cooperation, when you're in these negotiation points, you'll find it'll work out well. Okay? So leaders go first. Reflection time. You're driving to the fog, you turn the corner, and there's fog. What do? What happens? Slow down? Call a taxi. Pull over to the side of the road, call a taxi. That is a very creative choice, okay? Most organizations, most individuals will slow down. Why? Because you can't see where you're going. Okay? You're in a fog. How many of you feel right now, in the future of mental health care for children in Ontario, feel a little bit in a fog? Okay? We slow down. We end up with a lot of conversation, but nobody knows where we're going. So what do we need to do is we need to, two things. There we go. We'll just say we need to develop a vision, okay? And the vision then is about desired possibilities. Key things that I want you to do on this one is that funny shape at the top there, the two-headed person that's out there. That's the god Janus from ancient Roman times. The god Janus would look to the past and also look to the future. When you are looking at your vision, think about the past. And what they've done with studies is the deeper you look into the past, the better and deeper you look into the future. When you understand your past, you understand where things have gone, you will see things that will help you in the future. Okay, so I invite you to do that. And then the second, imagine the ideal. Really, truly have that conversation about what's the best that can be there. Because quite frankly, the people that you are the champions of need and should receive the best. So think about what that is. And then discover the theme that you can be passionate about. Because again, back to that earlier slide, if you're not passionate about it, people won't recognize that. They are going to follow you first, and then they will follow the plan. So make sure you are passionate about that. The thing I want to do is talk a little bit about your key values as well, and let me tell you a story. So imagine you're on an aircraft carrier, and let's say as you're there, there's a fellow that, for lack of a better name, let's say it was able-bodied seaman Wright. And he's walking along, and he's supposed to have a wrench right here in his pants pockets, but he finds it isn't there. So immediately he runs over, gets on the phone, calls up to the conning tower, not the conning tower, whatever it is on an aircraft carrier. The bridge, thank you. On the bridge on the aircraft carrier and said, let me speak to the captain. The captain comes on, and able-bodied seaman Wright just says, shut down the flight deck. And the captain says, shut down the flight deck. Who is this, and why am I shutting down the flight deck? And he said, it's able-bodied seaman Wright. I lost my, wrench. Could be on the flight deck, and if that gets sucked into an engine, as you know, the plane could crash, people could die. Captain says, where was the last place you had that? And he said, it was down where I was working. I think I had it there. I said, well, you go down there and find out. Meanwhile, the captain, planes are out flying around, doing all those sort of running out of fuel. He has people walking around the flight deck. Able-bodied seaman Wright goes downstairs, and lo and behold, there's his wrench. Calls it right away. Give me the bridge. And the bridge comes on bridge. Captain, can I speak to captain? Yeah, the captain comes on. Open the flight deck. He goes, open the flight deck. And he said, do you find your wrench? Now you're the captain. What do you do next? Open the flight deck, yes. Okay. Often I hear, I'd be firing that guy's, and since I've worked in the maritime, guy's arse right off this thing. Okay? No, that's exactly the opposite. I saw some head shaking. What he does is he has a ceremony and he publicly recognizes able-bodied seaman Wright for doing the right thing. What is the most important thing on this aircraft carrier? Safety. people's lives. What did able-bodied seaman do? He worried most about other people's lives. Will he likely take some ribbing from his colleagues? Yes. Will his wrench likely be sewed into his pants? Yes. Okay? But the captain wants everybody to know that this is the most important thing in this organization, on this aircraft carrier, and he did the right thing. Because the next time something goes on, what does he want to happen? He wants the selfless act and thinking about the most important. What is the most important thing in your organization? What is the value you want to cheer about? Okay? That is a very powerful point for you. So make sure that you have the vision and the key value that you cheer about all the time. I could mention many, many other organizations that do that, but that's a key one to think about. So now you know what the vision is that you've worked with, and now you know that you've got some values that you're going to cheer about. How do you go about selling that? And if we were going to spend a lot of time together, we could actually work through some of your presentation skills. But this guy, Jay Conger, I think has a great little storyline to go through that. And he talks about how things are framed makes a big difference. So this is a great outline for any speech you ever have to make from now on. And you sit there and you talk about what are the intrinsically appealing things, your goals that you're like to achieve, and how that aligns with those key values that you have. And then you may talk about what's the significance of the project. Why is it that this project needs to go forward? You will also, at some particular point, have to say, who's the bad guys that are out there? Who are the people that are trying to stop us from getting there? And then you have to tell them, but they will not succeed. Okay, they will not succeed. We will. And you've got to talk about ways to do that, and one of the best ways I've found is the concept of a story. So I know many of you are already great storytellers, but if you're not one now, become a good storyteller. Okay? And why? Because stories work. And let me tell you a story. Our maid of honor's mother had a chance to talk to Betty. She's Betty Gervin from London, Ontario. Anybody know Betty? And Betty and her colleagues play bridge. And apparently when you play bridge, in between times, people tell stories. And so when you play bridge over many, many years, sometimes you might even tell the same story again. And so what Betty and her group have, they have a little thing to go, if you've heard somebody said the story a second time, they do this. If you're sitting around the table and somebody's told the story maybe 3 times or so, you do this. And as you're sitting there and you're in the middle of telling your story and a few people are doing this to you, it means you've told the same story many, many times. Now, you probably realize I am a storyteller here. I tell my classes that because I'm also a poor memory, so I never remember what story I've told when I've told them. But why do I know stories work? I will have told a story in a second-year class, and then a student will come back in their MBA, and I see them in their second year, and there's been maybe 5 years in between their undergrad graduate and their MBA class, and I'm telling a story, and the student does this to me. And I go, you were in 291, weren't you? Yeah, and the rest of them, have the rest of you heard this story? No, keep going. So stories work. Why? They resonate with people. Figure out what your story is and develop those storylines. And now for something completely different. There is a book out there called Switch. I highly encourage you to pick it up. I do not get any money from this. By the Heath Brothers. And the Heath Brothers have this book, and I was working on a change project with these people and said, we want to use the Switch book as a kind of a background. I'm going, I don't want to, I've got my best model. I don't need these guys. There are a couple of guys from small university in Boston called Harvard. And what do they know about anything? So they have a really interesting model, and they talk about directing the rider, motivating the elephant, and shaping the path. And it's kind of an interesting one. And for those who are in the psychology world, it's directing the rider is cognitive psychology, motivating the elephant is if you're on the emotive side of psychology, and the last one is behavioral psychology. They just don't call it that. And so they have a number of different things that you can do when you're in the change process to make good things happen. So one of the ones in directing the rider, and I'll just give a brief introduction on a few of these things, is to follow the bright spots. And what their idea is,
the rider on the elephant has a certain amount of strength, and it's the cognitive. We know what we should be doing, but it's the emotive side. The elephant's too big for us, and so you lose the battle a little bit. So we said, so let me go, before I go to the things, I'll go down to the cheese story, because this is where I decided that I wanted to follow it. After I read the book, and I still was up, and then I was eating dinner at a lovely restaurant, and I said, what would you like for dessert? And I said, I'll have some cheese, please, because I like cheese. And in particular, I really like blue cheese. So they come with a cheese tray, and then I get it, and there's 6 cheeses on the cheese tray. And I go, here it is. Blue cheese. I know cognitively now, as the good rider that I am, I have to eat the cheese from the softest as around to eventually get to the blue cheese. Because if I eat the blue cheese first, I'm not going to taste any of the other cheese, and that would be a waste. So cognitively, I know, and I go, I am the master of my soul. I get it. I'm going to just follow the cheese till I eat the blue at the end. And then I start talking to people and la. 3rd cheese in. Which one do you think I just ate? The blue cheese. And I'm eating and I'm going, I really love the cheese. And I go, what? What just happened here? The elephant won. I wanted the blue cheese. Even though I talked to myself, no, eat the cheese in the order. The blue cheese won. So then I sat back feeling really devastated that I can't even figure that out, kind of thing. I'm not really. And then I realized, it's not my fault. It's the chef's fault. Because if the chef would have brought the cheeses out one at a time, I'd eaten them in the right order. And that's what this whole process is about. So the cognitive side of things, direct the rider, motivate the elephant, shape the path. I won't get into ones. The one that into talking about the stories, but motivate the elephant. You need to find the feeling. That's the powerful point. What is the feeling that your change is about? Okay, that's an easy one for you, right? That should be an easy one. The change, when I saw those videos before, and that's a pretty powerful message. You know what your feeling is about with your changes, who your key groups are. But make sure you know it. I did some work recently with the RCMP, and I've cleared it with them, and they're okay to do that. One of the things that they were looking at, they want to make some changes. They want to make sure that it's a respectful workplace. They've had some bad press recently, and they recognize they need to make some change. One of the things that they came out with to find the feeling, and for them, the red surge is very powerful. And so they said, you know what? The red is fading. That was a powerful message. That was their sense of urgency. You know what? The red is fading. So then they've moved from the red is fading, basically to take back the red. And that gives them that sense of order. They went out, there was 50 people in this room, and we said, okay, one of the 3 things they wanted to do at the end of the day, 3, where did that come from again? One of the 3 things they said they wanted to do was they wanted to share their story with people, and they've agreed that each one of them would talk to 10 people. So from 50 to 500. And that's kind of a great marshalling to get things happen. 3 weeks after, do you know how many people those 50 people had connected with? 8,000. That's a pretty, Somebody do the math for me. 10, 12, 14, 16. A lot of people, right? They talked to a lot of people. Why? Because they found the feeling. And when the feeling is there, then the change is possible. What's the feeling that you want to find within your group? So one of the latter things I want to leave you with to talk about is that you will find that there will be some cynics as you come into this. So this is a slide right out of a change course, so it's a lot of stuff on it, but it's a good message that I think you should do. Between 25 and 40% of the people will just instantly say, that's a load of crap. Rubbish, that won't work, okay? So how do you respond to that? Okay, why are they thinking that? The first one is, up there, they don't know what's going on, a lack of communication. Okay, here's a message for you. When you're a change agent and you're out there and you've taken Jay Congers to his word and you're out there telling a story, you've got find the red's fading, you've got your emotion things, and you're talking, you're going to everybody and stuff like that. When you are so sick of saying that story, at that very second, people are just starting to hear. They're just starting to hear. And you know what? I don't know how many conversations I've had with people. Wow, everybody's in the organizations should know about it. I sent out 3 emails. Okay. Oh, what a great strategy you have. So you better over-communicate when you're going to go through that in many, many, many ways. Okay, and when you're over-communicating, make sure you're talking about finding the feeling as you're going to do that, because that's a really powerful thing to do. And then previous experience. Deal with the past. Oh, we tried that before. No, you might have to have ceremonies about dealing with it. This is the old way. We're in the new way. Think about how you're going to deal with the past, because it's tough. You know, people like the way the past has been. And people might just have a negative disposition. So the first important thing you do, hire well. Oh, that... You know, horses out of the gate, the barn gate right now. Okay, well, if you can't make sure you're hiring well, maybe you should see the world from their perspective. Maybe see the world from their perspective. There's a great story about a guy by the name of Bratton. He was a police chief in New York. And one of the things he had, the board chair came in, hey, dollars and cents are pretty tight, you know, and things along that lines. And you know what, we're going to have to give you guys smaller cars. You know, because it's a lot cheaper for us, better fuel efficient, things like that. And Brad said, well, that's interesting. You know, that's good. Let's try it out. Let's you and I, says to the board chair, let's you and I drive around in a small car, see how it feels. So he puts the guy into all his armor and everything and stuff that he has to have in the bad thing, and he puts him in the front of the car and drives around for 8 hours, regular gig. And the guy barely gets out of the car at the end and he goes, you know what? You guys need bigger cars. Okay? So sometimes understand what their perspective is, and you might find you might have to change something of your view as well. And the last one, keep them involved. Ask for input. Absolutely listen, 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 engage those people, and then good things will happen. Well, this is a very snapshot-ish part from this change model by this guy, Barry Wright. Okay, and so it's the me, Marshall, message, map, motivate, and manage. So there's many things that will be in there. I've just given you a brief introduction on there, but I think I would hazard to say the greatest hits, but at least some of the things that were important on that. So the final exam for today, you did know there was an exam, didn't you? Is why is change so hard to enact? Well, there's a wonderful commercial from many, many years ago at the Super Bowl, and this guy was Mean Joe Green. And if you will, he comes limping off, and the little boy says, here's Mean Joe Green, and he gives him his Coke, and he drinks, I think it's Coke. It is Coke, drinks his Coke, and he says thank you, and he throws them thing. And it's all, and everybody, that went out, I don't know how many awards in advertising. Why? Because it found the feeling. It found the feeling. And so if there is one message, make sure you do find the feeling with any change that you want to go out there and be able to talk about what that feeling is. Because without feeling, you can come and tell all the rational arguments you want in the entire world. None of them will matter. The rider will agree with you, and then we'll still go and eat the cheese, eat the blue cheese, okay? So make sure you know what the emotional side is. And who would you rather spend an hour in conversation with, Chip or Dan Heath? I don't know. I think they're twins. So they're probably going to give you the same message. And the last thing I'd have for you in the final exam, who are you now? What 3 things are you going to take away and reflect on in the next little while so you might have some enacting things that you can do in your organization as you move forward? So thank you very much for your time. I know you've got a very... I know you have a very busy schedule ahead of yourself and a great day ahead, and so I encourage you to think about the 3 things as you go through there. But if down the road, if I can be any help anyway, here's some contacts from me. I have left a Reader's Digest version of the slides out at the deck, and I think they're going to be made available to you as well. So if anybody wants a bit of my slides, they're out there as well. So have a fabulous day. Thank you very much.
On behalf of Children's Mental Health Ontario, I just want to say thank you, Professor Wright, for that riveting presentation, and thanks also for validating my choice for having an iPhone over a BlackBerry.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go to break right now. Just a reminder, workshops will start promptly at 10:30. Posters on display in the foyer, make sure you check those out. Remember to keep tweeting. Our hashtag is CMHO13. And just want to let you guys know that unfortunately the workshop TA9, Holistic Organizational Transformation, is canceled due to illness. We hope to offer a webinar in the not too distant future. So once again, TA9, Holistic Organization Transformation, is canceled.